हरिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् ॐ शिष्य आत्मसमर्पण कार्पण्यदोषो उपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यः श्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ॐ. So, welcome to the 36th class. And we are in the 16th shloka of the second chapter. The shloka goes like this. Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate satah, ubhayorapi drishtontaha, tvanayostattvadarshibhihi. So we saw that here the most important aspect, as in a creation does not have a destruction, and that which doesn't exist cannot have an existence, an expression of existence. So the bottom line is, it is only a changing expressions that go through at a prakritic level, whereas at an Atma level, it is always existing. We spoke about Kutastha Nityam and Pravaga Nityam as well. We will speak about it in further shlokas as well. We were looking into the shloka in depth, and we are going to continue our analysis here. So the next thing is Dhiraha versus Tattvadarshi. Right? So in this shloka, we are seeing the word Tattvadarshi. And in the previous shloka, we saw Dhiraha. Technically, it is used very interchangeably. In a colloquial way, it is used very interchangeably. So let us try to do some deep dive between the two terms. In the previous shloka, the term Dhiraha was seen to represent one who is very intelligent. Panditaha is another term that is used for those who have the knowledge. Right? So we will try to compare the two terms. There is a very subtle difference between the two. If you take a look at the dictionary, Dhiraha means brave, strong, well conducted, skillful, thoughtful, etc. In Tattvadarshibihi, the way that it is done is one who sees the truth. So what we say is, you automatically become a Dhiraha when you are a Tattvadarshi, one who sees the truth. When you see the truth, you are naturally a Dhiraha. But it is not necessary the other way around. I may be very skillful, thoughtful, very strong, etc., but I may not be seeing the truth. And hence, Bhagavan has used both these words to emphasize this. In fact, even in the Shanti part, we would have come across Satyam Vadishyami and Ritham Vadishyami. Both are equally very, very important, which is to be skillful, to be strong, to be brave, etc., while also having the clarity in our mind to see the truth. Now, Drishtantaha is another word that Bhagavan has used. Drishtantaha and Tattvadarshibihi are going hand in hand. The one who is the seer of the truth will see the truth as a conclusive aspect, not necessarily as a transient aspect. Drishtaha is the seer, that which is seen. Antaha is the end, which is representative of conclusion, the essence, the ultimate reality. That is what is the representation of the word drishtantaha. A conclusive vision is a vision that identifies with clarity on whatever is seen. As in, whether what is seen is a Sat, Maya, or Asat. Misconception, especially from other darshanas like Vishishtadvaita or Dvaita philosophies, they see Jagat as being denied, as it is classified as Mithya. In Advaita Darshanam, we say Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. This Jagan Mithya is identified by other philosophies as denying the existence of Jagat. That is not what we are doing. What we are trying to do is to see the end result or understand the transient nature of existence of any prakritik amsam, anything that is objectified. That which you identify as an object is transient in nature. That transient in nature is what is defined with the term Mithya in the Advaita tradition, in our tradition. The error is seeing Mithya as an Asat. Unfortunately, there are some Advaitic schools or Advaitic teachers as well who present it in this manner, as though the world doesn't exist or we should not give value into it. The value is given at a transactional level. It is not given at an absolute level. That is the difference which need to be totally borne in mind. Mithya is a term that denotes a sat, an existence which is superimposed by an asat. Right? An asat is not necessarily very correct. I would rather say a sat which is superimposed on anything which is transient or which has a dependent existence on you. For example, I am seeing a building in front of me. It continuously undergoes a change, but mind associates a permanence to that building. This attribution of permanence is the ignorance. We never even think of it as it is not permanent. We very strongly argue that it is permanent. But when we analyze it even a little bit, we understand the ignorance that we are reflecting. Mithya is a term that can be attributed to the building. It is nama rupabhyam eva, means it is one which has a name and a form and nothing more. Drishtantaha is a term that helps us to clarify this. The transient nature of Mithya is seen by a Viveki, by a Pandit, Pandaha, right? So one who has that knowledge knows the transient nature of anything that is objectified. What is the benefit? Once I see that it is transient in nature, a destruction that comes to it is not going to impact me. The reason is I don't have any dependence on such transient thing. For example, I have the vivekam that this building is impermanent. It is only a name and a form. And as soon as this building gets damaged, I feel like I have been damaged. I feel like I have lost something. It means I have put a value into something which in itself is not having a value. Right? It is a continuous process, it is a continuous change. Having an understanding that it is continuously changing is different from putting a value into it. The problem is in putting a value into anything that is continuously changing. And the term Mithya is to define that value which we are putting into that which is merely a name and a form. Attributing the true nature of Mithya to a Mithya is Drishtantah. Even looking at it from a Sat point of view, the ability to see what is the kind of truth that we are seeing is Drishtantah. There are three kinds of truth. One is called as individual reality. For example, me seeing a snake on a rope, it is an individual reality. Or this building is a transactional reality. I can welcome you home and we can have a dinner together. We can take rest here. So you can transactionally use it. The third one is absolute reality, right, which is called as Paramarthika Sat. Being in a vision to see the Paramarthika Sat while transacting in a transactional truth and always overcoming any individual reality that one experiences is a Viveki, is the Tattvadarshi. So the use of the term Drishtantah and Tattvadarshi is to establish this into our mind. That is what our tradition teaches with respect to these two words in this shloka. Now, let us continue with the example of building. On the one hand, we are classifying it as Mithya, and on the other hand, we are classifying it as a transactional truth. Mithya represents vision for the experience one has with the object. Whereas Vyavaharika Sat is the vision for engaging in a transactional reality of this world. When I am functionally involved, I look at the object as a Sat Amsam, Pratibhasikam, Vyavaharikam, or Paramarthikam, having that ability. Whereas when I'm experiencing, as in when the aspect of Bhokta comes into me, my vision of the building is based on Sat, Asat, and Mithya. Right? So it is not like they are two different things. They are two different things for two different purposes. Mithya is from an experience point of view, whereas the Sat Amsam, the Pratibhasika, Vyavaharika, and Paramarthika Sat is purely based on how I deal with an object, how I am functionally involved with an object. This, we see it as a foundation to Jnana Yoga. Start this discrimination, as in develop the vivekam to see to see between self, non-self, atma and anatma, and understand the mithya, sat, asat, Swarupam, as well as the types of Sat that we are talking about. Acharya's Bhashyam is very technical. The Bhashyam is presented in this manner that will be just, I'll give you some introduction here. The first one is he starts with a pratigna. Basically, he declares what is the position. The next one is karanam. What is the basis of taking such a pratigna, of taking such a position with respect to the shloka? And nigamanam is the Q&A which is used to establish the stance that has been taken in the pratigna level. So that is the way that he approaches the bhashyam for this shloka. What is seen is classified as Sat Buddhi and Asat Buddhi. The term exists, continues, while the object keeps changing. That which keeps changing is Mithya or Asat Buddhi, and that which continues is Sat Buddhi. Now, this is the foundation for Jagan Mithya and Brahma Satyam in the approach that Acharya takes in the Advaita tradition. This introduction is needed because when you go into the details, you will see how it is being approached. And this will give you a clarity in terms of what Acharya is trying to speak. So moving into the Bhashyam, the first one is pretty simple, which is Nasataha na asataha avidhyamanasya शीतोष्णादेः sakaranasya na vidyate nasti bhavo bhavam astitah. So first one is this is what he is establishing. Nahi शीतोष्णाधि sakaranam pramanaihi nirupamanam vastu sambhavati. विकारो हि सह विकारः च व्यभिचरति यथा घटादि संस्थानं चक्षुषा निरूप्यमाणं मृद् व्यतिरेकेण अनुपलब्धे असथ तथा सर्वो विकारः कारण व्यतिरेकेण अनुपलब्धेयः असन् जन्म प्रध्वंसाम्य प्राक् urdhvam cha anupalabdehe. Okay, we will go into the details. There is no basis for a dualistic experience. That is what he starts with. This is because the dualistic experiences happen due to an existence identified through the praman, which is the sensory organs or other means of knowledge. What sensory organs experience is the experience of the name and the form only. So this is what is the very difficult portion in Acharya's explanation. Very simple and very direct expression. That is what Acharya has done here. Objects that can be known through a praman, a vastu, is given a state of existence, not a state of a transient existence. The experience as well as the objects of experiences are always changing and they are independent. Right? So it is not that this object gives me this experience. This object can give me any kind of changing experiences, and this object also continues to change. Okay, so the same object will not give me the same experience at all times. That is again very subtly being brought to the attention here by Acharya. For example, the eyes experience the pot. The pot was merely a mud before and after the pot is completely destroyed. However, seeing from the eyes, we have established an existence of a pot. Anything which is identified through a change does not have an existence of its own. So this is a very, very important note that Acharya puts here. He says that if something was not existing before and is not likely to exist after, then this existence does not have an existence of its own. That is the core here. Right? But what we do is we give that an existence of its own. And that misconception is the basis for the dualistic experiences. Like what he says, Shitoshnadehe. Right? But it is just a dualistic, any kind of dualistic experience, happy, sorrow, right? Cold and warm, victory and failure, any kind of a dualistic experience you may take. The dualistic experience has the base on the wrong thing, which is putting an existence to that which does not have an existence of its own. Okay. So as I said, this is very, very, very deep and technical. So I just want you to think through it, take it easy, and try to digest it. The relationship with that which is to change will also change your experience. Hence, developing an attachment to them and expecting the dualistic experiences should be seen as, or experiencing the dualistic experiences must be seen as a Mithya. And the experience in itself should merely be persevered. Right? So we know it. This is an experience that is happening at a prakritic level. I'm not prakritik amsam. I have borrowed the prakritik amsam for my current expression. As an Atman, I am not the prakritik amsam at all. That is the realization that one must acquire through this shloka. That which cannot be obtained before its creation and after its destruction has no basis for holding on to. That is the another important thing that Acharya brings about here. Because you can try to hold on to it. You will only fool yourself. You may hold it on for 1 year, 10 years, but then eventually it will go. Your interest in holding itself will go away after some time. Right? New car I'm buying, so I'm so passionate about it. And after 2, 3 years, or maybe after 10 years, I'm thinking in terms of how to get rid of this now. Right? So, maybe I should just call the Salvation Army for them to pick it up and so on and so forth. That is what exactly happens. That which I was holding on with so much of passion has lost everything. The vivekam, the drishtantam, the end result is something that a viveki will see when he is experiencing. He's not going to, what do you say, stop the experience. Right? The expression, say for example, upon seeing something, a love emerges, or upon seeing something, there is a pain that you are suffering. That is not changing. That is just part of it. And that is the part which is the prakritik amsam. Later, Bhagavan will say, guna guneshu vartante. It is only the guns transacting with each other. It has got nothing to do with me. But at the same time, because I am giving the ashrayam for this body, I also get to experience this transient experiences. And when I experience this transient experience, I should persevere, or I should just enjoy it. Maybe that is a bad word to use, because it is one side of the dualistic experiences. I must experience it. I must accept it as a natural aspect of this body. Right? This body is able to travel and see great places, and is also able to get some stomach pain, the headache, and all those things. I experience them. And that experience is what we should have as our association with this body, or for that matter, with any object that you associate yourself with. That experience is something that you carry on. And the word that we are trying to use here is persevere. Further, Acharya says, Mridadi karanasya tat, right? Mud being the cause of the pot, and that too has a causal aspect, and so on. If we take this, will it not lead to nothing? This will establish that only Asat, non-existence or emptiness, is the truth or possibility. Will not everything become unreal? Okay, so this is from a Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha is one who is debating about the pratignya that a person has taken. Right? So say, for example, I am saying this is what it is, and you are disagreeing with my pratignya, then you become a Purva Paksha. So Purva Paksha's question is, Mridadi karanasya tat karanasya cha tat karana vyathirekena anupalabdhehe asatvam. So what I'm going to eventually get to is asatvam. Tad asatvecha sarvabhava prasanga iti chet. Right? So doesn't it just express that it is only that asat eva? This is purely non-existence. It has got no truth at all. Will it not lead us to that? So here Acharya gives a very beautiful response. He says, Na sarvatra buddhi dvaya upalabdheyah sadbuddhihi asadbuddhihi iti. Yad vishaya buddhihi na vyabhicharati tat sat. Right? That is the most important thing. There is something that doesn't change. That is sat. Yad vishaya buddhihi vyabhicharati tad asat iti sad asad vibhago buddhi tantre sthithe. Now, sarvatra द्वे बुद्धि सर्वेः उपलभ्येते समानाधिकरणे न मीलोत्पलवत्. Right? So he is giving an example here. San ghatah, san patah, san hasti iti evam sarvatra. So now he is differentiating between a property and an existence. We will talk about it. Tayoho buddhayoho gathadi buddhihi vyabhicharati tatha cha darshitam natu sadbuddhihi. Tasmad gathadi buddhi vishayah asat vyabhicharat na tu sadbuddhi vishayah avyabhicharat. So now he is kind of differentiating between two things. One, he is calling it as Sadbuddhi, and another he is calling it as Asadbuddhi. And how they coexist is what Acharya's responses. So first, Na Nilotpalavat. This deviates from the topic a little bit. It provides a clarification of the two types of buddhi being spoken. The earlier statement is that there are two buddhis available in relation to the same topic or the object. the two being spoken is not like seeing a blue lotus. In Blue Lotus 2, one can say they have two buddhi, as in one which sees the property and the other which sees the object. One which sees the blue and the other that sees the lotus. Right. So Samanadikarane is referring to two buddhi in us looking at the same object, like pot, a piece of cloth, or an elephant. So very important clarification, because it is possible that we may look at the object and misunderstand the two kinds of buddhi to be one that looks at the property and the other that looks at the object, and the object is the sadbuddhi, the property is the asad buddhi. That kind of a misconception can happen. So Acharya is first trying to remove that misconception. He says that, hey, what I am talking right here is the two kinds of buddhi on the same object, not on two different concepts or two different objects. Blue as a color, as a property is one object. The lotus as an object is another object. So I'm not talking about two buddhi in two different objects. I am talking about two buddhi in the same object. So now you can look at the extent to which the answers are so well communicated. Very clearly, listen, there is no scope for misunderstanding. You need to be on the same page with me about it. So that is the nice way of presenting in the Bhashyam. The second clarification is Acharya has used the term object, which is technically the subject, the Sadbuddhi and the Asadbuddhi. Right? Sadbuddhi Vishaya is Paramatma Swarupa Atma, the soul, the one and the only true existence that doesn't change. So the Sadbuddhi is seen from a very universal point of view. The question is also about a philosophy by some who follow the sect called as Shunyavadam, that there is nothing. Everything will merely be a name and a form. So they go into the Pravaga Nityam. The Nityatvam that you see, the permanence that you see, is merely a continuous change and providing you an experience of existence. That is what is part of the Shunyavadam. It comes within the one of the sects of Buddhism. Right now, this aspect is also, we go in our, when we talk about it in, say, Brahma Sutra or other places, we would have discussed saying that, hey, this is incorrect because for something to change, to be witnessed, there must be a seer who is unchanged. That seer is still a Sat. That which is seen is Pravaga Nityam. Totally agree with you on the Shunyavadam. But the Shunyavadam is missing out on the seer, which is Kutastha Nityam. That is the way that argument will be made. But we will continue with this. One with no division, which also means we cannot say it is a sum of all. Yes, that is the Visishtadvaita denier in this place. Right? It can be seen as that. See, Advaita, at least from a tradition point of view, everything has existed. Right? But it became very prominent with, say, Ramanuja or with Shankaracharya and so on. In that sequence, the first one was Shankaracharya, just by circumstances. Right? So here it is something which says that Visishtadvaita, which is seeing it as a whole with branches, is also removed because you should not see it as a sum of all. That it is undivided completeness is one more thing that we get from this Bhashyam. It is one projecting as many, and what is experienced is only the projection. So that is the another important clarification that is traditionally followed in the teaching for this bhashyam. As I told you, this bhashyam, maybe to read, it could be a simple one, but to understand, to take it inside, it is a lot of effort. And hence, there is so much of analysis that is done for this piece of bhashyam. Now, what has Acharya actually said? These clarifications are based on the Tika Tipni that we have been reading or that has traditionally been passed on to us. But what is Acharya saying? He says, no, everywhere there are two kinds of buddhi available. They can be called as Sad Buddhi and Asad Buddhi. The buddhi, which is your vision, your intellect, which does not create a division, is called Sadbuddhi. Pay very close attention to it. I am looking at this bottle of Vicks. Question is, am I making a division? Yes, I am making a division. Desa kala vastu parichinnam. Right? So that is automatically done on any object. So a buddhi that sees the object, right, always divides. But there is another buddhi which says that this Vicks bottle exists. The existence is the Sadbuddhi, that is undivided. It is wholesome. Even if in case this bottle of Vicks is removed, there is the existence which is going to continue. It doesn't have anything to express the existence, but the existence doesn't change. He will speak about it later. But that is what is Sadbuddhi. Sadbuddhi is a vision that sees existence in this body, which is undivided. Most important aspect. With does not create any division. It is universal. That is Sadbuddhi. But the buddhi that defines this to be an object is the Asad Buddhi. It divides it. From the whole, it takes this out and sees this as a Vicks bottle. Right? For convenience of understanding, a person who is seeing from the space will not see this at all. It is still the same earth that he is seeing. He's not even going to see my hands moving or anything of that sort, perhaps. I don't know. But the thing is, there is a place where the division is very subjective in nature, is very contextual in nature. Those division-based outlook is Asad Buddhi. Right? That is a very, very subtle and a very, very important aspect of this class. Sadbuddhi versus Asadbuddhi. And what Acharya says is they simultaneously exist together everywhere and act towards the same object being experienced. So he says that there is Sadbuddhi, the one that which sees the truth, the Atmaswarupam, which sees the existence, and the Buddhi Swarupam, which divides it and identifies the object. They operate at the same time on everything. That is what Acharya's clarification is. Right. So you have both Sadbuddhi and Asadbuddhi as you are reading this book or looking at a pen or anything on the table kind of a stuff. Samanadi Karane, equally available as a tool or an instrument for you. The two Buddhi is not like seeing a blue lotus, that is seeing the property and object. It is like seeing the pot or a cloth or an elephant, literal translation of what he has written. The buddhi that sees the pot, the cloth, etc., the one which sees the world in a divided fashion as distinctly separate objects, keeps changing. thus changing your experiences as well. The Sadbuddhi, on the other hand, will be constant because it doesn't divide but exists as a Chaitanya Amsam at all times. So, traditionally, we are used to the example of thinking the awareness of my thought and the object. Say, I think about a book. While I'm thinking about the book, I also know I am thinking about the book. Right? So, there is a concept of realization of what my thought is also. So the expression of the thought or the origination of the thought is objectified, but the identifier of the thought is the Chaitanyam. That is the way that we have spoken in our previous classes. So I was just wanting to refresh it, maybe especially for Prabha, with whom I have not told this earlier. Now, while this example is still valid, the downside is the possibility of misleading the students to think of Sadbuddhi as something internal. Okay? That is a common mistake that we all think. Atma, a soul that is existing in you. That in itself is a wrong concept. Right? That you is an object that you have identified, and something that exists in you is the way that you will ridicule the Sadbuddhi. So Acharya has emphasized that the Sadbuddhi together with the Asad Buddhi functions on all experiences. That aspect must be really, totally engraved in you. So that is the core of the response that Acharya gives. So the Purvapaksha continues. Gate vinashte gatabuddhau vyabhicharantyam sadbuddhihi api vyabhicharati iti chet. Right? It's again something that we had spoken about earlier, but here it is coming from the Gata point of view. The nuance is, if it's a very beautiful question. The Purva Paksha is asking, when the pot is destroyed, the pot no longer exists, and hence the thought about that pot also no longer exists. As in, the object of experience is no longer there. If you have the memory of the pot, it's a different object. Right? It is a memory of a pot, not the pot by itself. So, with the destruction of the pot, the Sadbuddhi is also getting destroyed. That is the form, or that is the basis of this question. Right? The nuance in this is, if Acharya were to have said yes, then the definition of Sadbuddhi will go false. Because Sadbuddhi also transgresses, it also changes. With the destruction of the object, the Sadbuddhi and the Asad Buddhi, which is looking at the same object, they also get destroyed. So the change happens with the Sadbuddhi as well. So me arguing about Sadbuddhi becomes wrong. So very tricky kind of a question. So Acharya says, na patadau api sadbuddhi darshanat. Visheshana Vishaya eva sa sadbuddhi. Right. Acharya responds with clear no. Gives the reason as, in the piece of cloth, etc., as well as what is seen is sadbuddhi. The special aspect, the base, which is the satswarupam, which is Atma, is only seen by sadbuddhi. He just simply puts it. But for explanation, we just say it like this. With respect to Sadbuddhi, what I experience is the existence in its pure form, and not as it is expressed through an object of experience. I experience existence, and the object happens to reflect the experience of existence in that object as well. If the object is gone, the existence continues. It is just that there is nothing else for it to present the existence. When something else is presented, that existence is going to give the ashrayam to that object for the object to give its existence, is the way that it is to be understood. While the Asad Buddhi, or the Buddhi that's well known to us, sees the pot, book, etc., the Sad Buddhi only sees the eternal existence. This eternal existence that the Sad Buddhi witnesses remains unchanged even as the objects come and go. In response to the question, and because I see existence in the pot and not pot having the existence, the Sad Buddhi does not deviate or move. So, very, very important aspect. So, remember what Acharya has done for this shloka is make you realize that your mind and the consciousness behind the mind are two different aspects. The mind, the buddhi, is asat buddhi. It keeps changing. Whereas the buddhi that is being applied is based on the sad chit swarupam of the atma, which is eternal. Developing this ability to see both is the foundation to the moksha marga, is the way that Acharya is trying to come out with. So, the next question, Sadbuddhivad Ghata Buddhihi api Ghatantare Drishyate iti chet. Well, when the pot or ghata is destroyed, similar to the sadbuddhi, ghata buddhi as well continues to see or experience the ghata buddhi in other ghatas. So he says that, hey, you're saying that existence is eternal, and the one which divides and sees it as a part is asad buddhi. If this part is destroyed and another part is brought, my Asad Buddhi, or the Asad Buddhi that you claim, is also going to continue. Right? Similar to what is happening in Sad Buddhi. Sad Buddhi existence is there. And when the object comes, that object is given an existence. Okay, agree. Another object comes, another object, what he says, the same thing happens with my Asad Buddhi too. I can say that Asad Buddhi also continues to exist. It is just that the object is not there, so it is not there. Right? Because Acharya puts it very simply, na patadau adarshanat. He merely says that would be incorrect. In the piece of cloth, etc., it is not seen. Now, this is because the pot or cloth or elephant is merely a name and a form. They only have transient existence. Hence, this one is not a valid tarkam, is the way that Acharya has responded. He has put a single simple word, nah, don't even bother about it, that's wrong. Now, the Acharya calls the Asad Buddhi will continue its association on the existence of those objects in other such objects. If that is the case, how can Shankaracharya say that Asad Buddhi is destroyed? Now, the most important thing is we are not discussing a knowledge about something. A knowledge about something is a different object as opposed to the knowledge which is about the specific pot or a piece of cloth. I hope you are able to understand it. Let us put it this way. For me, this is a mouse, and there is one more thing, which is another mouse. Once this mouse got destroyed, my Asad Buddhi got destroyed. Later, when another mouse came in, my Asad Buddhi also identified it. So, Sad Buddhi and Asad Buddhi are acting exactly the same way. That is what the Purva Paksha is arguing. Acharya, simple response, says it is an invalid tarka. Right? If you study it well, what you will understand is the term object is that which is defined. That which is defined was merely a name and a form. That has gone. Now, when the other mouse is being brought, there are two different aspects that are working. One is your recognition of the object, which is a knowledge of something to be classified as a mouse, and that knowledge is helping you to put a name to the form that you're seeing in front of you. That's about it. Right. So what Acharya is trying to say is this thing that has continued for you to have this experience of this object, another mouse, is related with the recognition process. It is the recognition happens because of some knowledge. That knowledge is also part of the Asad Buddhi. Whereas with respect to existence, it is eternal. Right. So that is the main line of argument that Acharya places here. The lesson for us is to be able to differentiate between that which is defined as an object and associate the term Asad Buddhi to it, and that which is the base and give that as the Sad Buddhi in our learning process. That is the core, right? But this is another topic which we can go for an hour or maybe a day of debate as well. Because what he is arguing, the Purva Paksha is arguing, is not incorrect. It is very much valid. But we have the task of identifying that which is transient in nature and that which is permanent in nature. Now, for the transient in nature, what are all the arguments that can be placed to make it look like permanent is countless. The objective of this class is merely to bring this knowledge of that which is a Sadbuddhi and that which is an Asadbuddhi to you. Now, it is very indicative only. It is not definitive in nature. And as I said, there will be a lot of time that we will have during the normal Shravanam that we are going through in these classes, where the Sadasad Buddhi Vivekam, we will be able to pursue a lot more. So for now, I will proceed to the next. Then he says, Sad Buddhi buddhirapi nashte gathe na drishyate iti chet. Well, in that case, Sadbuddhi, which saw the Satswarupam, the base for existence associated with the pot, will also be destroyed when the pot is destroyed. Right? So here, Acharya clarifies, na visheshya abhavat. Sadbuddhi visheshana vishaya sati विशेष्य अभावे विशेषण अनुपपत्तौ किम विषया स्यात् न तु पुनः षद्बुद्धेः विषय अभावात्. So here the intent must be very clearly understood. The objective of this Q&A, at least in this class, is not to defeat or to establish that this is what is said is correct, right? That is a separate kind of an exercise that we can do. The objective of this class is merely to help you understand the two kinds of buddhi that is operating in us and associate ourselves with the two put together, giving you the experience. Now, Acharya has given the response very beautifully. What the Sadbuddhi sees is the whole and provides the ability to distinguish or particularize an object. Remember, there are two aspects. This is what is Sad and Chit. Both of them are hinted here. Right? It sees the whole is the existence, the Sat Swarupam, and provides the ability to distinguish or particularize an object, which is the Chaitanya Amsam. Right? The Atma provides this basis, which is the Chaitanyam and the Sad Amsam, the existence. Now, Acharya says, if the object is absent, there is no need to distinguish or particularize something. Right? The word that Acharya uses is anupapattau, insufficiency, or the means to characterize an object. So this means the absence of object will remove the ability to distinguish or particularize an object. The Sad Buddhi is not destroyed. The Sad Buddhi gives the existence throughout. The Chaitanya Amsam, which enables you to dissect, which gives the base for the Buddhi to dissect, does not have an object to dissect. That doesn't mean the existence has gone. Right? So the definition of Atma in terms of Sad and Chit, existence and Chaitanya Amsam, is very beautifully revealed in this shloka by Bhagwan through this Q&A. Now, we are almost to the end of it, but time is 7:28. So I will take a break here and we will get into this slide, right, in the Q&A in our next class before proceeding on to the 17th shloka. Okay, so Prabhakar.
Actually, I'm not in a position to question today because I'm still divided between the two, not having a thorough clarity on this.
I totally understand. And as I said, the way that Bhagavan approaches Bhagavad Gita is very interesting. He just throws the most difficult thing at Arjuna first and then steps back to slowly go and start the spoon feed from the third chapter. Right? So everything that is required to be said is packed into this small section. Right? It is further elaborated towards the end of the second chapter in Sthita Prajna Lakshan. But the Atma Swarupam, this is the most difficult area which Bhagavan has just thrown it. Feel free to try and digest it. If you don't, it is okay. We will be going in more easier way to understand it. And this will be remembered by you when we speak on those specific topics in various chapters. Right? So don't be dismayed, but this is something which is the most intricate part. So enjoy and experience the flow.
Yeah, looking forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Jyoti ji?
Thank you, Nashji. No questions, Nashji.
Awesome. श्याम भैया हैं वहां पर?
हाँ है ना.
I thought so because this chapter would have definitely
बहुत ऊपर से गया.
आपका? अरे भैया क्या बात कर रहे हो?
आपका रिकॉर्डिंग बार बार ऐसा 5-5 मिनट पॉज करके सुनना पड़ेगा.
No, I've tried my best to be as slow and as detailed as possible. But as I was telling Prabhakar, don't try to uh, swallow it all over. We have the IV coming up in our subsequent chapters later.
Mm.
Any questions from you, sir?
No, no questions. I'm waiting for your recording.
Oh, okay. You got 35th. I think I should start posting it in our class, in our this thing. I miss it in the WhatsApp group. I will post it after I edit the beginning. Okay. Well, I will take leave now, sir, and we will connect again next week. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.